Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of NasCard Radio. This is episode number 55. I'm your pal Val, and with me is the amazing Jason. Jason, how are you?
I'm doing well, Val, on this national week. It's bittersweet for me, but I'm glad to see you guys are making the trip. And hopefully next week we'll just have so much to talk about in a show that there won't be enough time. And, you and I talked that we would just do kind of an easy week this week. So,
yeah, this is gonna be kind of the national and Olympic break show. And then next week will be the after national show, so we'll have a ton to talk about then. Also, make sure you are following the at NasCardRadio for national updates. Logan's off today. Just a little housekeeping. If you're looking for information from some of the other older sets, you can check out the NasCard Radio archives. The 1989 Max set, we talk about that on episode 48. The 1988 Max, show 38 and 39. The 1987-88 World of Outlaws, that's with the Jeff Gordon, that's show 40. Some other key ones are going to be 1972 SDP, show number 29. The 1983 Uno, show 31. So you can check those in the archive if you want to catch the old archive discussions about those sets. But let's kick it off, Jason.
All right, so this was kind of my idea this week, and I, come to you earlier a couple of days ago, and just kind of wanted to. I guess my suggestion was my point of view from the collecting, because I'm sure with our audience, there are the diehards, there's the middle of the road people, and then there are people kind of like me that are middle of the road to still beginner. And I thought it would be a good opportunity and kind of a brief, shorter topic to kind of talk about not necessarily how I collect specifically, but kind of how I've gone about collecting with kind of the fresh eyeballs point of view, especially for me coming from different sports as primarily collecting, baseball and then a little bit of basketball and football. NASCAR is very new to me, and it's different than the others. And we talk about it every week, how the releases are so spread out that you get time to collect. And it's so different than baseball, basketball, football, and even hockey, where there are, we'll just throw out a number, 40 releases a year. And with NASCAR, we have 4, some years 5. So you're talking a tenth of just one of the sports. And if you would add them all up, those big 3, baseball, basketball, football, if there's 120 releases there and NASCAR gets 4 total, you're looking at 2 or 3%. So it's nowhere near what the others are and the love that the others get. So I thought it would be a good idea to kind of get the new guys' perspective. And then also where you've helped me along the way.
That's one of the appealing things to NASCAR, I think. Yes, they don't get the number of releases the other sports do, but I've been collecting a long time, just like you, but I remember the days when, you only had one Topps release and one Donruss release and everything else. So it wasn't as hectic, I guess it is. But I like the NASCAR because it's one of the lower level sports, even though the viewership is very high for TV and other ways that people consume the races. But collectability, I don't think it's, I know it's not there yet. But I like the limited releases because it allows you to collect on your timeline and your budget, as well as in that quiet time where there's no release to go after other things, older sets. And that's what I've done during collecting is look at some of the older sets and collect those, like 2000, going after Jimmy Johnson and stuff. But as a new collector, I don't think people realize that there's been at least one set produced since 1988, which I think is pretty amazing considering it's, not even in the top four. And that, if you were born between 1988 and now, there's a set from your birth year, which, people like to give sets, for children when they're born and stuff like that. But I guess to show the longevity of NASCAR, because I don't think people really know that. And NASCAR rookies aren't like other rookies, and the sport is not like the other sports, and it definitely is a team sport, but the driver is the one who gets all the credit or all the blame, it's like kind of like quarterback is
absolutely
football, but the offensive line or defensive line, maybe a couple of those guys stand out, but all the other ones don't get the fame, but they're a important part of the team.
Yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I like the limited number of releases, and again, that's a personal opinion, that we agree on, and I know everybody doesn't feel that same way. But when you look at the releases, let's just take 2021 for example. You have Donruss, Chronicles, Prism, National Treasures. Now those are the only 4 this year, correct?
Yes, that I know of.
So when you have those 4, 2020 and 2021 were kind of weird years for pricing, and things went crazy everywhere. But in general, you're looking at Donruss is probably under 100 a box, depending on what happens, but it probably releases on a normal year like 75 or 80. Prism is probably 120 normally for a hobby box.
I think so. Yeah, I think pre-COVID, Prism was Prism and Chronicles were about the same price point, about 120, 125, I think.
Right.
Donruss was the lower end, and then National Treasures naturally is the higher end. So,
right.
I think they have the 2 middle, the 1 high, and the 1 low. And then we had our survey last year where people loved the Chronicles, and then like the diehards, I think in the Nuts group, but then on Twitter everybody liked the Prism shiny stuff. So,
right, and I think. Like you said, there's the 1 kind of lower end, 2 in the middle, and one high, which would be National Treasures. It goes from $100, $120 with Prism and Chronicles to what is it, $350 for National Treasures. So it goes from very mid to, I would say very high. For a hobby box, National Treasures is about as high as it gets. Minus a couple things that like Topps has done, Dynasty and things like that, but those haven't been around very long, and National Treasures kind of has a decent history, 5+ years or so, and they've kind of established that brand. But I think when you're looking at it from the collecting standpoint, it's a huge jump from 120 to 300. And I think the ones that won't buy the 300 never will. I think they'll spend 300 and get 30 cards of the driver that they want. So they're going to kind of shun that one regardless, and then probably stay middle to the lower with Prism, Donruss, and Chronicles. And then other years we had Certified, Torque, Select. It's kind of changed over the years, but Donruss has been the constant. And Donruss is essentially the NASCAR version of Topps right now. But they kind of hit, Panini has done a good job, and they hit all collectors with the limited amount of releases they have. Donruss is your set builders, Prism is your color guys, Chronicles is for your people that kind of like to just buy stuff, and National Treasures is for your gambler. And I don't think you can do it any better. This definitely harkens back to 1989, 90, 91, where you have Donruss, Fleer, Score, Topps, Upper Deck, and that's it. But they were all different enough to where you were brand loyal, almost like guys are with Nike, Reebok. You know, they were, because I can think right now, if you would look at 90 Fleer versus 90 Topps, 90 Donruss, you have a colorful border, a white border, a red border, and then the Upper Deck was a different card stock where it was that premium, where they were all so different. So you kind of, as a collector, pick your favorite, and that's kind of what Panini has done with NASCAR.
Yeah, I think, with the addition of Chronicles, a lot of the collectors for NASCAR are driver collectors, and they're chasing all of the parallels. I think for the National Treasures, that is really not something that the collector buys and breaks, but more participates in box breaks. I think that's more of the National Treasures. And we really didn't talk about, but NASCAR guys are cheap. They're used to having cheap wax, getting their drivers for cheap. I saw a post the other day. I think it was, I don't know if it was on a Nuts or one of the other one, where somebody had, I guess, either had bid or paid what they thought was too much for, must have been one of the drivers that they collect. So, they weren't happy with. But now, with the state of all the hobby, there's more eyes looking at NASCAR opportunities. We saw that with the Chronicle boxes that on the pre-sale jumped to $250, and I don't know if that was kind of the test of waters and to see, or to starve off flippers or whatever. But then as it got closer to the release, I think it was just a few weeks before the release, it dropped down to 150, I believe it was, or 125. Panini had Chronicles for 120 on their site, but I think sold out within 4 or 5 minutes. And there was a limit of 5 per person. I guess spinning back, the NASCAR guys are used to, cheap wax, getting their cards are cheap. So a lot of the other, I guess, speculative haven't come in. There is some in like 2018 Prism and stuff like that for Haley Deacon. But for the most part, the prices are pretty reasonable considering the state of the hobby with all the other sports.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time that when we're doing the show, live to us, when we're recording and we talk about this certain card, and then 2 minutes later, I'm like, oh yeah, I bought it on COMC for $350, or whatever. And you can't do that with the other sports. If you look at, I'm shooting numbers off the top of my head, but I don't think they're too far off. But if you would look at somebody like, a Troy Aikman rookie card, you're, depending on the brand, you're looking $10, $20, $30, $50 versus, somebody like Jimmy Johnson. What's his rookie card going to run you right now? I can't imagine it's the same. And then you also have
$10 max.
Yeah. So it's a lot easier to, I guess when it's a Hall of Famer, speculate's not the right word, but it's a lot easier to do certain types of collections in NASCAR that you can't do as easily in other sports. And that was one of the topics I was going to bring up was, collecting Hall of Fame rookie cards, but, we'll go into that here in a minute. But yeah, you're right. The prices for NASCAR cards are not even in the same ballpark as, what the other big three or four sports are.
I guess it's good and bad. Right now, it's great for the collector. I guess bad when the speculators come. But, looking at, you mentioned Jimmy Johnson, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, even Chase Elliott. Now, Chase might be a little higher right now because he's doing well. But some of the other drivers I mentioned are either retired or not doing very well, but they're solid Hall of Famers. But we do have the speculative, like who's the hot rookie in baseball? I know the people are going nuts, and even for the prospects and Bowman and stuff like that. So we do have that with Ty Gibbs. There's a lot of speculative on him, and right now he's driving lights out. So he's doing very well. And then Haley Deegan. So I see some of that speculative for them, but everybody else is kind of nowhere near. When Ty Gibbs is selling for more than Jimmy Johnson, that's what makes me pause, or a Haley Deegan autograph more than a Jimmy Johnson autograph. I'd rather have the Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, it's that thing that, everybody talks about, and it's kind of that analogy with kids playing with electronics, and we played with, cards and bicycles, years ago. But it's tough because I'm very much a set collector. I love the history. I love knowing how cards are made and the story behind, say, a forgotten card in a set and whose fault it was and all that crazy stuff. And I love reading and catching up on my old stuff, but I'm just as guilty as the next person of, oh, there's new stuff coming out at Walmart this Friday. I better go check and see what's going on. So it's that thing of the shiny new toy is getting dangled in front of me, but I still love my go-to of 1990 tops as much as 2021 tops. It's just the new thing in the store, and I got to go get it. So I think that's where a lot of that comes from. But when you were talking about it, it made me think of a question for you, because you've been in this way longer than I have. I grew up with NASCAR cards being Max, Pro Set, a little bit of Upper Deck, and then Press Pass. Press Pass were the big boys. We didn't have, Topps Chrome Refractor rookies and Panini Prisms and all that stuff, and Optic. Do you think, and forget about the shiny new toy being the new driver like Danica or Haley Deegan, when somebody new comes out, they're popular because there's the speculation. But do you think there's the added bonus right now because we do have brands like Chase Elliott's rookie card? We've said it a million times. It's certified. Haley Deegan has Optic silvers and hollows and all that Prism, and Ty Gibbs is the same way. Do you think the addition from Panini of the literal shiny cards is helping collectors stay focused on the new rather than focusing on the historical part of getting a Jimmy Johnson rookie card?
Panini is fighting, I don't say uphill battle, and they've done a great job. They came into the sport in 2016. I don't know if you remember, but Brian Gray had come on. I think it was a Hobby Hotline. He was talking about he was bidding on the NASCAR license, and basically he bid nothing. he said that or they should be paying him to produce NASCAR or whatever. So, but Panini came in with a better bid naturally. But Press Pass, I don't think did a good job. They made cards, but in this day and age, or because Press Pass was the only one for a while, they just kind of rode that coattails without trying to increase the brand at all with collectors. As I'm sitting here telling you, I remember being at the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and it was an autograph session that they were having, and I had some cards out, and the people behind me saw them, and they were intrigued. They're like, "What is that?" And I said, "Well, it's bank baseball cards for NASCAR." And they're like, "Well, where do you get them?" And they were fans of the sport, but how did they not know that? But I don't know if there's this thing about diecast or because people grew up with Hot Wheels and stuff, and they go to diecast, but they don't know about the card. So Panini has been working on increasing that. And I think they realized that, and that sponsorship of Greg Galding and the Panini car, with the Panini car running around on the track and getting some exposure and doing the other stuff they did. I think there was Mahomes hood, and just showing that, hey, there are trading cards, and there are for NASCAR as well as these other sports. And so they're helping, you would think that when you paid NASCAR a fee or whatever to do the cards, that they would help you. But I don't think that's, it at all. And I had met Mike Joy and was trying to get him, to talk about NASCAR trading cards. And he remembered them from the early days from the 90s because he had some cards, but he didn't know they made cards anymore. He thought, they didn't make cards anymore. And I was like, no, Panini's been making cards. Panini made that Fox announcer set after that. But I think if they could incorporate some more stuff, or they're working on trying to increase that base. I don't know if so they're good at making cards like Press Pass. They had great customer service and made great cards, all these innovations. But when I went to the NASCAR Hall of Fame, to the gift center, they didn't have any cards. Press Pass didn't have any cards. They were located in Charlotte or just north of Charlotte.
Oh, that's right.
So when I asked the guy about it, he's like, "Oh yeah, we have stuff," and it wasn't trading cards at all. It was like these postcards or something,
right?
And not cards. So it's like I think there's this disconnect, and Panini's fighting that battle. This is one of the reasons why we're doing the podcast is to talk about this, because nobody in the world is talking about this stuff. Mm-hmm. And like I said, they've been making sets since 1980 every year. There's sets before that, whatever. So, we're trying to educate folks as well. I know Panini's working on it, and so just trying to increase that fan base, and with trading cards, and then with the popularity right now of trading cards, hopefully it helps with NASCAR.
And I'm glad that you brought it up, and you brought up a really good point. And it's something that I just saw the other day where Topps put their, I don't know if it's National Baseball Card Day. I think that's what it is, where each Major League Baseball stadium is going to give away those packs of 3 or 4 cards where they all, I think the one year last year, probably wasn't last year, it must have been like the year before. I think the set was like 150 cards. Each team had around 5 players per team featured in the set, 30 teams, about 150 cards. And each team had one of their promotional days was the Topps baseball card giveaway day. And I'm really surprised, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think NASCAR, I don't think Panini has done anything like that. And Panini, now I'm flipping it backwards. I don't think Panini has done that. And NASCAR is such a fan-driven sport, so much more than sport like baseball. Yes, it's fan-driven, but with 162 games and teams like the Tampa Bay Rays that have 1,000 people per game, it's not fan-driven the same way that NASCAR is fan-driven, where people were showing up in all the logo gear. I was a store manager for Lids years ago when Dale Jr. switched, and I had never sold so many NASCAR hats in my life. And, it is so fan-driven, and Panini, in my opinion, is not taking advantage of that.
You bring up some great points, and I think we've talked about it on previous shows. There's this, because like to your point, I think you have all these tracks. Some of them happen twice a year. That there's this great opportunity to reach the fan, and I don't know if Panini hasn't tried or has tried, and then there's stuff that we don't know about in the back end. But I can tell you from going to Charlotte Motor Speedway, the program comes with a Matchbox car, and the Matchbox car has the last two digits of the year. It's in before he passed away. Sam Bass did the cover of the program, but because I just thought they could produce a card set or some cards or a card per each track. If they didn't want to go that route and wanted to go cheaper, do the stickers like Major League Baseball stickers or football stickers, and do NASCAR and give out some packs of stickers to the kids at the tracks and then produce a sticker book.
Not to cut you off totally, but why do they not have sticker books? I have never thought of that in my entire life. Why do they not have sticker books? Because there are enough drivers, there are multiple levels, there are enough racetracks to where you could do those multi-sticker things to where they make a square where there's 4 stickers that make the picture of the racetrack. Sorry about what the hell are they doing?
I don't know. I'll have to try to talk to them again. But I always look at the 88 Max set. The 88 Max set has track cards, and you flip it over, and it's got their phone number, and I want to say some more information, the track layout. And in the day and age of social media, I can see a track card, flip it over the back, their Twitter, Instagram, phone number, track layout, whatever else you want to do. It's an easy, I don't know how many tracks there are, 20, 25 or whatever. And again, you could do that in a sticker book. I don't know if Panini wants to put the time in to do that, if it's a risk, if it's not worth the money to grow it. It's like we had Panini Instant. They had low numbers, but that was scrapped in 2017. The hobby has totally changed since 2017. But I don't know if they have the manpower. They're so busy putting out these, whatever it is you said, 120 other sets. But
that's also the other part of it, where if you're doing 120 sets, nobody is going to miss one set from each sport. If they don't know that it was ever on the chopping block, and it's not like a product is scheduled for release and then it gets canceled and people are mad. You could just not come up with one new product the next year and send all that money and those funds over to NASCAR. But, we're not running that show down there. So
And of course, I'm going to be biased because I think there should be, more NASCAR stuff. But I think the ideas all make sense.
I just don't see how one sport gets 4 releases and another sport gets 40. I get it. Football is millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and NASCAR is probably millions. Football is probably billions. I'm not saying it's 1 million versus 100 billion, so please don't ridicule me. But at the same time, I know there's a difference. I'm not an idiot. But going back to the promotional giveaways, there's 2 things that they could do. They could take the crap load of leftover Donruss that they make, because we all know it's like Tops, and that's your penny candy, essentially. All those leftover packs, don't do anything with them, and just send the Daytona 500 or in Daytona 4, whatever. Send Daytona 70 cases of Donruss packs and say, give them out until they're gone, 1 to every person that comes in, or whatever. Or if they wanted to take it a step further, take all those Donruss cards, make a foil stamp, and all of a sudden you have a race-specific card that some kid might care about, and that kid might spend $1 million on cards in his lifetime. And it's just that thing, and we're not talking about anything that we said we were going to, but that's okay. That's the easy stuff that these companies aren't doing. And even Tops that people like to complain about, at least they're doing 1 giveaway per stadium every year. Why is Panini not doing 1 giveaway per racetrack? Even if they did it on a rotating basis and did 5 a year, whatever the length of their contract is, say they have a 6-year contract and you said there's 29 racetracks. Well, that's 6 a year, and we can hit them all in that, or 5 a year, whatever I said. But we could hit them all throughout that contract, and then they've more than fulfilled their obligation.
Yeah, I don't know if they have those contacts or relationships at the track level. NASCAR is its own corporate, and then the tracks are their own.
It's a different animal for sure.
It totally makes sense, and I don't know if they've tried this and didn't get any response back from it, because it's got to be a 2-way street, right? Panini might want to do it, but the tracks might not want to do it. I've been trying to get the NASCAR Hall of Fame to produce something for its members, and they produce, when you become an annual member and get a membership at the Hall of Fame, they give you a die cast of I guess the pictures of the year of the people who get inducted into the Hall of Fame. And so we've been getting that for the last 10 years. But it'd be nice to have some kind of trading card set, even if it's a Donruss set stamped with the NASCAR Hall of Fame logo, and make it a unique parallel, kind of like what Topps does.
Well, they do it for football.
Yeah. So, but again, that's the NASCAR Hall of Fame having to reach out and do that, I guess, and pay, Panini to do that or whatever. So I guess it needs to be a desire on the other side. And I guess the trading card collector is not as big or vocal as, football or whatever. So, but I'm totally there with you.
I don't know. It's one of those things where I've been to the Football Hall of Fame once, and it was the year that Jerome Bettis got inducted. So I don't know what that was, like 2015 or something. And in their massive Hall of Fame gift shop, in one of those racks on like a little spinner, there's a bunch of card sets, and they were the Hall of Fame members. However many people got inducted that year, they each got a card. some sets were 8 cards, some were 9, whatever. But it's a little card set in a clear cellophane wrapper, less than $10. I want to say like $5 or $6. It wasn't anything special, but to me as the card collector, I'm like, oh yeah, I got to get a couple of these, one to open, one to keep sealed, one for my son, that thing. It's not like it took up a lot of real estate in the store. And I know they're not I imagine they're not making a ton of money off of those, but they're also not putting a ton into it. Obviously with the clear cellophane wrapper, it's not even getting the tops now treatment where they all get those cardboard envelopes to just say tops now. It's not even getting that. So they're not putting a lot of money into it, but also I was pumped as could be when I found it. I didn't care that it was in a clear cellophane wrapper, but to me it was, this is significant of me being there that year. And for something like that, charge an extra $3 on the NASCAR membership and give them a set, or do something, something like that. I just don't see where they can do it for other sports and not NASCAR. But there's a lot of things that could change too.
Well, like I said, that there's some kind of something about cards. To my knowledge, the NASCAR Hall of Fame has never had a trading card exhibit. If you go to the NASCAR Hall of Fame gift shop, there are T-shirts and books, some photos of the tracks and stuff, and then lots of diecasts. I think they had packs of Donruss for sale. I haven't been there in a while, but there were some cards. But for the most part, diecasts, expensive diecasts, signed diecasts in the display cases and stuff. So,
right.
Yeah, it just, because I've been, was talking to me and Logan for a few years about trying to get them to have some kind of trading card exhibit, because I know at the Baseball Hall of Fame, there's stuff, even if they had a set of 88 Max and some other stuff in there, I thought it would be cool. So, maybe in the future, something like that. But it just seems like, we're trying to swim upstream.
Yeah, there's tons of things that they could do, and I think we're giving decent suggestions. It's just the right person needs to listen. But going back to the beginning of the show and what I said that I was going to do, and I have not done in these 40 minutes that we've been recording, I do want to say just real briefly and real just quickly before we end this, me coming as an outside NASCAR collector with little experience, there are a couple of things to watch out for. If you are the type of person that likes all of your cards to be the same, this is probably not for you. Because like you said, there have been card sets consistently since '88, but there have also been a handful of manufacturers that have gone away. So if you are the type of person that wants the Topps rookie cards of Hall of Famers, or if you collect silver sluggers or, something like that, MVPs, whatever your collection is, if you have a goal in mind, all of your cards will not be the same. And especially getting into the old, which would be, say, Max Pro set, where they are the base cards, and getting into now where you're looking at Optic Prism and shiny stuff, it's totally different. What I will say is start with the Hall of Fame first, because a Hall of Fame collection for NASCAR is not the same as a Hall of Fame collection in the other sports, and that's based off of price. you can spend $30 in one sport and get one card, where in NASCAR you could probably get 5 or 6, and the people will either be current Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers, or a couple of those guys that are personal opinion maybe should have been in, depends on who you're talking to, kind of person. That is what I did. I'm a set collector by nature, but with NASCAR, I'm not as involved with it as I am with other sports. So I kind of said, let's do best of the best. I'm not an autograph collector. So I kind of went with the next best thing, in my opinion. And I have been picking up, and you'll hear it happen on the show, like I've already said, Hall of Fame or future Hall of Fame rookie cards. And I've nowhere near broke the bank on anybody. There's a couple guys, Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt, where I probably won't get them, but they might be the last. But other guys like Jimmy Johnson or Kyle Busch, or these guys that were household names, Mark Martin, Jeff Gordon, down the line, they're not that expensive. So I can do a lot of damage with $100 compared to football, baseball, basketball. So that is my kind of tip. Start with Hall of Fame because you're not going to break the bank. And the way that NASCAR cards are, and I think you will agree with me, they can't really go down, and I don't mean this in a negative way. We're kind of already at the bottom of the barrel when you compare it to the other sports. But as we saw with COVID, everything took an uptick, including wrestling cards. So everything has the possibility to go up. And NASCAR, where we are, we're starting at the bottom. I don't think we can really go any farther down. I think it's only up from here. And I think a lot of the things that we talked about on the show today, the promotional aspect, if they ever get their butts in line and start doing this stuff, I think the collection that somebody starts today will increase, that much faster.
I have that kind of the same outlook. I think there's so much potential for NASCAR, and I think if they can get either the stars align or they're working on making a better product or having a better product for folks to watch with the playoff situation. I think they have a lot of young rookies coming up through the system that wasn't necessarily the case years ago, but there are a lot of rookies now. And I think, I know this is a lot to put on her, but on Hailie Deegan, where she wants to race. It's not that Danica didn't want to race, but she's actually said that I think her family, they could have bought a boat or a go-kart, and they got the go-kart, and so she learned to drive, did very well. And, she drove Indy, which is totally different than NASCAR, and I want to say they rushed her up. But I think Danica wasn't, born to race. And you look at Hailie Deegan, and that's all she wants to do. And where I'm going with this is when Danica left the sport, there was a huge vacuum for the female fan. And I think that if Hailie Deegan can work her way up to the higher levels and do very well or win, I think it will bring that female fan back. That NASCAR or racing in general allows women and men to compete on the same track, field, whatever. There's no basketball, women's basketball,
right,
female soccer, men's soccer,
right,
that she can go out and compete with men head to head. And I think, without sounding whatever, that I think that's appealing and brings all the female fans possibly back to the sport that we're watching. When I was getting autographs during that time in the early 2010s, the women were there to get Danica's autograph. So there was definitely that presence there. So I think Haley's got to, it's probably not fair to put that pressure on her, but she's definitely has some talent and has done pretty well in the truck series. I think that's kind of one of those wild cards for NASCAR, as well as, moving the format around, moving tracks around, getting rid of the old, I guess, stereotypes and stuff like that of NASCAR, and with Pitbull, with Trackhouse, with Michael Jordan coming in. There's actually been a massive amount of interest in new teams for NASCAR. NASCAR's going to the next gen to bring down costs even more, to try to have that entry level for new teams. So ARCA truck is cheaper than Xfinity and Cup. So NASCAR is working on that too. So all that being said, they are trying to work on the product and make it more appealing. And if that happens, then that also brings possibly more collectors.
Yeah, and I'll kind of wrap it up for me and say we've kind of been at that standstill of 4 or 5 products a year. And I think if we would go, let's just say next year, if they would come out and say 2022, we're going to come out with 6 products, I think all of our eyes would be, open as much as possible and bright, just shocked as hell. And it's not that something's going from 4 to 6, but something is increasing by 50%. That would be the equivalent of my argument earlier. If football went from 40 to 60, I can only imagine the holy crap moments that people would be having. And I think when you scale it down for the NASCAR collectors, if they came out next year and said, we're going to have 6 products, I think it would be the same holy crap moment. And then if they continued, and I'm not saying every year it goes, 6 and 8 and 10, but even if we see that steady increase every couple of years of 5 products, then 6 and 7, we will know that everything's going in the right direction, and they are slowly gaining confidence in the sports in the sport and in the brands. And then that's where I'll let it rest for tonight.
I think, I'd love to see the Panini Instant come back. I think they're missing a huge opportunity when drivers get their first win, or as a fan, being able to collect every driver's win from their first one up until, if you could, Kyle Larson, his wins, or Chase Elliott, all his wins. We had a bunch of, winners this year, first-time winners. Christopher Bell, I believe, this jumps out at me. But to be able to, over time, collect those. So back in 2017, there were 3 first-time winners: Ryan Blaney, Austin Dillon, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, I did buy the Ryan Blaney because, that was his first win, and I was planning on, collecting all the other Ryan Blaney wins. Also it makes a great card to get autographed as well, which I've done. So Austin Dillon the same way. He's won a few. So I think that's something. I don't know if they've recognized that or not. I think we talked about it last week. It would be great if they had one with the Kyle Busch and Kurt Busch,
the brothers. Yep.
Yeah. So I know it is extra work and definitely having to deal with the licensing and everything else, but I'm I'm hoping, that comes back and that shows that the demand for NASCAR, because F1 and the tops now with F1 with thousands of cars in the print run,
which blows my mind.
Yeah, and then the prices for those as well. So it seems like, the sport is doing well. The sport's going in the right direction. Hopefully the cards will continue, and with Panini sponsoring the car as well, and maybe it wasn't even Panini, actually. I don't know if we talked about this, but when this comes out, Ty Dillon will be at the COMC booth on Friday and Saturday. I think for an hour.
Shocked me.
What's that?
Which shocked me.
Yeah, I wish I would have known about it a little bit earlier, but again, we're recording this way before that happens. But from the blog post on Check White Cards, he's a card collector, so me and Logan are going to try to talk to him and maybe try to see if I can get him on the show in the future.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. Yep.
So to your point, so there's going to have the one driver at the show. He's not actually going to be in the autograph pavilion, but he's there as a guest for checking out the card. So, any publicity is, I guess, good publicity for NASCAR drivers.
And see again. Oh wait, they are giving. Isn't there a promo card for him that they're giving away?
I think they mentioned 100 cards each day, and there'll be a drawing. You have to enter each day, and they will have them autographed,
Is it
JSA certified, and put into your account.
Is it a Panini card?
They did not say.
That'll be interesting to see what it is. And then we'll have to discuss that, see if Panini was on it or if somebody dropped the ball there, or see what happens. Because the contracts right now are a big deal, and with the exclusives, I'm really curious to see who's making that card, and if he's in a suit or if he's in a street clothes, or what it is. I'm very curious to see.
Yeah, we will definitely report back next week with our interaction with Ty Dillon, and then also if the cards and stuff like that. So we're going to try to talk to him and talk to him about cards, as well as I'm having his dad has a card from the 1999 press pass, so we want to give him one of those, as well as one of his grandfather, Richard Childress. So
nice.
Yeah. So, as a card collector, we'll find out what kind of cards he collects. Just because he's in NASCAR doesn't mean he collects NASCAR cards. So,
right.
But we'll see. Like I said, since our podcast is geared towards trading cards, again, over all the different sports, collecting cards is collecting cards. It might be a little bit different, but for the most part, a lot of things are similar. So,
yep. I loved today's conversation because I think it's stuff that we always talk about off air, and definitely things that you and I have talked about, because I have hit you with a bunch of questions of how to collect and what to look for. So I definitely think it's important for people to know going forward. And then I'm kind of curious as to what's going to happen in the national and what kind of footprint racing has. So I'll be excited to talk to you guys next week for sure.
It will be exciting to talk to you as well, and let all the listeners know what we saw and what kind of presence after this pandemic NASCAR has at the show. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll leave it there.
Yep, that works for me.
Well, thanks everybody for listening. If you will share the podcast with your friends, share NASCAR trading cards with them as well. And from me and Jason and Logan, we will talk to you next week after the National.